Welcome to Super Talk Outdoors, where every single Monday at lunchtime, we celebrate the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi because, as I love to say, this is the capital of the outdoors in America. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful Super Talk Mississippi radio network. Some of you are listening on the Super Talk Outdoors at supertalk.fm, Amazon Alexa, the Super Talk Mississippi app, or Super Talk TV at C Spire TV. And we thank you for doing that. Of course, some of you are on social media. You've watched the show on YouTube or Facebook or your favorite podcast, and we really appreciate that. As I like to say, we want to be there wherever, whenever you want to engage in this show as we continue to celebrate this amazing state. It's March the 24th, 2025. Listen, I was so thrilled to see the governor sign the turkey stamp bill. And I want to, if you're not aware of this, you should go to supertalk.fm. Supertalk.fm and the SuperTalk Mississippi app I highly recommend them. You can get news from Mississippi, not from Indiana, but from Mississippi. And you see a lot of news sources or news outlets these days across the state of Mississippi that are filling their content full of news not from Mississippi. But you can go to supertalk.fm and get the news from an incredible news team, Mitchell, and the team there is doing just a terrific job of capturing the important news from across the state. And this news goes to almost 50 radio stations that are part of the SuperTalk Mississippi radio network or news network. And so this news is being seen far and wide. Of course, they posted at SuperTalk Mississippi News. You can follow them on X or Facebook or, you name it. You'll have access to the news here. But Caleb Sailors, who is a terrific writer for that team, has regularly covered outdoors and wildlife issues. And I just want to read just a couple of bars from his most recent column, our story. Here's what Caleb wrote. Hunters will soon be required to purchase a turkey stamp before killing the wild bird in Mississippi. Governor Tate Reeves on Thursday signed Senate Bill 2280 into law. The bill establishes a wild turkey stamp program mandating hunters 16 or older to purchase a specific permit to hunt turkeys in the state in addition to other necessary hunting licenses. The Mississippi Commission on Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks will be tasked with launching the wild turkey stamp and its electronic equivalent, allowing the Magnolia State to join 16 of its peers in instituting the program. For Mississippi residents, the turkey stamp will cost $10. The cost goes up to $100 for non-residents looking to hunt the feathered game in the Magnolia State. All revenue from the sale of the stamps will be earmarked for conservation projects strictly seeking to restore, maintain, and preserve wild turkey habitats. These projects must first be approved by the state's Wildlife Commission. Man, I'm so thrilled. Listen, this has been a 2-year journey. Sometimes the easiest legislation, and not to say that this was easy because it wasn't, but stuff that you would think commonsensically would be the right thing to do takes a little bit of time to build the kind of steam and support that is necessary. We got up very, very close last year, and we got it done this year. And as I mentioned, Senator Ben Suber, who is the chairman of the Wildlife Committee on the Senate side, who joined me on my show, in fact, last week. And then Bill Kincaid, the chairman of the House Committee, they worked together to get it done this year. And we appreciate Bill and Ben working together. In fact, Bill Kincaid may join me next Monday. I'm thinking we've got that pinned down, but it's tentative. Hopefully we'll get it nailed down this week. But we're thrilled that that Bill will be joining me next week, as Ben Suber did last week. Really enjoyed getting to know him better. He's going to be a terrific chairman of the Wildlife Committee. He was super determined to get it done, as Bill was also determined to get it done. And as I shared with my visit on my Ricky Mathews show, I had Delbert Hoseman on my show last Thursday for the entire hour. We spent an entire hour talking about it. And anytime wildlife bills come up with Delbert, he loves the outdoors, and he was equally pleased that we got this one across the finish line this year. Really, really terrific progress here in Mississippi. In fact, it's interesting. The support for it has been tremendous in the outdoors community. there are a few naysayers out there, and we'll actually cover some of that as we get into our conversation today with someone I really enjoy spending time with. In fact, I've been trying to get him rescheduled now for a few weeks. He is a busy, busy guy this time of year. But Pierce Young, who is assistant coordinator for the Private Lands Program, a major league great program that the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks has. But without any further ado, let me welcome my friend Pierce Young back into the conversation. Pierce, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Glad to be back on.
It's good to see you. So where are you located right now?
Right now, I'm sitting at one of our WMAs. I've got a bunch of DMAP jawbones I've still got to get done for the year. You can probably see a bunch of them sitting there on the back of my tailgate. So got some good space out here to get them done and get away from some of the noise and just listen to the birds while I knock out a bunch of jawbones today.
So, which WMA are you located at?
Pearl River WMA.
Well, that's great. Listen, I love checking in with you, Pierce, because usually you are coming to me from your truck or from location, wherever you're located, and we appreciate you taking the time. But, man, this is a really busy time of year for you, isn't it?
It is. Really, we just came out of our busiest season, so right after deer season ends and before turkey season begins, we get a lot of requests from people to have us out to their property and start some of those discussions, and also some of the properties we've always worked with meeting after the season and discussing how things went and how we could move forward and make things better.
Have you had the opportunity to do any turkey hunting?
A little bit. I took my oldest daughter. She's about to be 6 years old. Took her out with my father, her grandfather. We went. We heard a bunch of turkeys. None of them were in a place we could really get to very easily, but she got to hear a bunch of them. We got out in the yard at the camp, shot the 410 for the first time to see how she liked it. That was my father's 410. And so she liked it, and so just getting out and letting her enjoy it a little bit.
Listen, man, I've got an old Sweet 16 single shot 16 gauge Winchester that was my grandfather's, and then he passed it to my father, and my father passed it to me. And a couple of years ago, my son Jordan is a big time bow hunter. He wants to get out in the woods and be upfront and personal, and he'll create the most complicated setup because bow hunting is not easy, that. But so he likes to create scenarios that are hard, and that's the way he enjoys hunting. If it's not super challenging, he doesn't want to do it. But a couple of years ago, he went on a mission to shoot a buck with this 16 gauge. And which meant, he had to get in, on the ground in the woods and, at a crossing. And the time that he ended up killing a beautiful 8-point. And unfortunately, I wasn't up there. I was back here. I had shows to do, so I wasn't able to be up there. But he called me darn near in tears. I got one. I finally got one. But the symbolism of that gun, man, that the connection to him, me, my father, my grandfather, is just so important, man. And I'm hearing you tell the story of taking your 6-year-old out with your father and grandfather. What else would you rather be doing in that moment?
Oh, no. I definitely couldn't. And, coincidentally, I shot my first turkey with a Sweet 16. It was my great-grandfather's gun. So just keeping that tradition alive, that's what it's all about. Love the outdoors and keeping that going.
Man, me too, man. And look, what I love about you, Pierce, it comes out in the shows we do, the time that we had to visit offline, is you are, well, first of all, I say this every week, but the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, is full of incredibly dedicated professionals. For anyone who doubts that, they need to just listen to my show every single week. Because, look, I'm a former news executive. I was a CEO in digital media companies, publishers of multiple newspapers, et cetera. I've been around some of the best of the best. And I can usually smell a rat. I can usually tell you if someone's not genuine or not. But one of the things that I love about visiting with employees from the department is, I mean, I haven't talked to anybody yet that wasn't dedicated to what they're doing. I mean, they have dedicated their lives to that. In fact, we'll give you a chance to reply to that part of what I'm talking about when we get back on the other side. But we're visiting with my friend Pierce Young, who's assistant coordinator with the Private Lands Program for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And when we come back on the other side, we'll continue the conversation. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I want to thank my friend Cal Curley, the producer of this show, the guy who keeps me straight day in and day out on my Ricky Mathews show and week in and week out on this show. He's been a great partner to have over the past 5 years. He keeps me in line, and I appreciate that. You should see what happens offline as he cracks the whip to keep us moving in the right direction. Hey, listen, are you looking to purchase that perfect piece of hunting property, upgrade your farm equipment, or have you been dreaming of owning your slice of heaven out in the country? Look no further than Mississippi Land Bank for your financing needs. For more than 100 years, farming families and landowners in North Mississippi have turned to Mississippi Land Bank for all kinds of financial solutions, whether it's land, equipment, or livestock. For more information, visit mslandbank.com or go by and see one of their friendly staff at any of their offices. We're thrilled to have Mississippi Land Bank as a sponsor of Super Talk Outdoors. Now let's get back to our conversation with Pierce Young, who is assistant coordinator of the Private Lands Program for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And what I was saying before we went to the break was simply that in all of the conversations that I've had with employees from the department, I mean, they've dedicated their lives to making the conservation efforts in Mississippi the best they can be. I mean, it's one of the reasons why Mississippi, time and time again, is on a national map for the conservation efforts that we're doing in this state. I mean, the Private Lands Program is part of that story. But that describes you, doesn't it, Pierce?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone that I know in our Wildlife Bureau, we grew up hunting. We cared deeply about the tradition of hunting and conservation and the wildlife. And we just want to keep that going, for our kids and grandkids. And that's why we do it. We definitely would not do this job if we didn't love it.
Well, listen, we posted at the SuperTalk Outdoors Facebook page a story about the wild turkey bill. You had to have been thrilled to see that pass the legislature and be signed by the governor.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be a really good thing. No doubt. Yeah.
I was checking this morning, and it's just on the SuperTalk site. It's been, I'm talking about just the Facebook, this is not counting the metrics at the actual supertalk.fm news site, just this particular Facebook page. And there had been nearly 15,000 views, nearly 1,800 people engaged in the story. It's been shared nearly 30 times. And I looked at who was sharing it, and people like Lake Pickle and Jordan Blissett and Travis Ham and a long list of others. There was tremendous support for this, because if there's a success story in this state, it's how our forefathers got focused on this to bring the turkey population back across the state of Mississippi. I mean, it is a true success story, isn't it, my friend?
Absolutely. I mean, wildlife conservation in our state and across the United States in general is a true success story. We had multiple species that are now have very good populations that were on the endangered species list. Now they're thriving. And that's all because of conservationists, hunters especially, coming together and saying this is important and we need to make this better.
Yeah, it's really, really, really important, and this bill will help kind of drive that forward. And I know in my conversations with people like Adam Butler that the reality is there's a lot, when you see some declining of hunters and outdoorsmen and other species, man, the wild turkey story continues to get even more popular. Of course, because of the way our season starts in relation to other states, we get a lot of pressure from outside the state that come into Mississippi. That's a good thing. But now those guys are going to be paying $100 for their turkey stamp. Mississippians will only pay $10, but over $1 million, and then this is the opportunity, in fact, to match with some other federal sources to maybe grow that number substantially. But it will all be focused on conservation efforts in this state, and the department and the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission will say grace over that to make sure that we're being smart about how we spend that money. What's interesting to me is there's still, I think Ben Suber might have said it says, it's 80-20. We see about 80% of the people support it, 20% don't. And he said maybe all 20% live in his district. But I was looking at some of the responses and some of the shares that took place on Facebook of the story that SuperTalk shared, the SuperTalk news team shared. And people are cynical. They're cynical about, where is this money going? Some say it's going to line the pockets of big shots and this government overreach and so on. But, I have learned through this show, for doing this show nearly 5 years and talking to people like you and knowing the commission and the terrific commission that we have today, that there is tremendous oversight to make sure this money is going to be used in ways that literally is going to help us enhance the wild turkey conservation. So people who might think that, I would really encourage you to pay attention as we go forward with this money and see that it's going to really make a difference. There's tremendous visibility into how they're using this money, great transparency, and I'm personally convinced that it's going to be for good. But how do you overcome when you're out in the field and you hear people talking about government overreach and that we're going to waste the money, et cetera? How do you deal with that?
And it's very difficult. You try to highlight what you can, but it's complex. It's a complex agency, but without people seeing these benefits that we see every day, it's hard to show that. But talking about all the different programs we have that are benefiting wildlife, and especially, of course, I'm biased in the private lands program, getting private landowners involved, those are the people that are going to move the needle, and getting habitat enhanced all across the state, seeing that day to day. It's easy for me to see it, but a lot harder to get that full picture to people out there as well.
Yeah, listen, that's one of the reasons you're focused on the private lands program, which is a free service provided by the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. It's important because in Mississippi, between 80 and 90% of the land in Mississippi is owned by private individuals. So where if you look at Mississippi's public land opportunities combined with U.S. Forest Service and so on, the amount of public land available to hunters in Mississippi is incredible. And then when you look at the effort underway at the wildlife management areas that the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks has direct, supervision and management of, the work that they do to make it so that every Mississippian is within just a short drive of a great hunting opportunity. I mean, this is a special state, but we're not going to impact things like deer management and CWD management and turkey management and so on. Alligator management. Alligator story in and of itself is a great story if you think about what we've done to bring that back. But if you look at the efforts underway in your program, we don't really move the needle at the end of the day if we don't have a really, really rigorous and comprehensive private management program. And that's what you guys are focused on, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about what drives turkey populations. It's nest success and poult survival. That's all habitat related. You need good brood rearing habitat, which a lot of people will say, even the highest professionals in the turkey management field say we don't have near enough brood rearing habitat, good vegetation habitat for poult survival to drive those numbers. We can get nest success, through timber management, even for deer management. But all those things have to be working together. I mean, turkeys, they move across the landscape on a big scale. They'll typically going to have 2,000 acres that they're covering in their home range. So everyone working together on habitat management is what's going to drive the needle for sure.
So my friend Terry Waldrop is up in the Delta as we speak. He said they got lots of rain and big hail last night. They didn't need more rain, incidentally, but he went to check out some of our farms and the food plots. I'll just show you just one. Let's see if I can show you this. I'm showing him just a picture of one we call the runway, and they all look kind of like that. The food plots look better now than they did the entire hunting season. It's amazing. But there's a lot of people that are doing this right now. They're and you just had a mad rush in your department about this. But coming on the end of deer season, they're thinking about, okay, what can we do to enhance next year? What do we need to do? Do we need to add some trails? Where do new food plots need to be? What's the experience and what can we learn from this year's experience to move into next year? But a lot of people are doing like we're doing. We're going to add 3 different food plots on one of our farms and add some roads, and we're getting some soil testing done and thinking about lime. But a lot of the folks that you're working with are going through the same process, aren't they?
Absolutely, and it's a long-term process, but we got to start somewhere. Typically, what people are starting with us with is a plan, and people ask, how often do I need to come back out there? And I tell them as often as they need me to. But a lot of these processes are going to take a long time. More commonly, we're meeting with someone, once every 2 or 3 years. Because until some of those processes like timber management or something like that get changing, we're just going to be repeating the same things we did before. So change is slow, but it's got to start somewhere, and that's where we come in.
You saw how good looking that food plot looked. Did that surprise you?
This time of year, we're finally experiencing spring green up, and getting some of those warmer temperatures, but not everyone's is going to look that good. But definitely everyone's starting to look a little bit better as we get some warm weather.
We'll be back with Pierce Young right after this break. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. We're visiting with my friend Pierce Young from the Private Lands Program for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Like you said, it's a busy time of year. I mean, the DMAP program continues to be one of your staples, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we're coming up. This is year 48. So in 2027, it will be the 50th anniversary of the Deer Management Assistance Program when it was started by Harry Jacobson and David Gwynn back in 1977. We were the first state to have it. After they used it at the MSU Deer Lab for a research project, we took it on statewide in 1980. And we've been going ever since, and we've seen decades of changes at this point, and collected some great data and helped a lot of good deer managers out there make things better.
Listen, I'm excited when I read about the program. It's I mean, first of all, the statistics prove out extraordinarily well that this program helps a lot, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I've just spent the last couple years doing a data deep dive into that 40 plus, almost 50 years worth of data, and pulling out a lot of that information, showing how much it works, how long it takes, typically on average for members in DMAP to show if it works, if the differences in if they're following recommendations or not, what those differences are. And it at the end of the day, the bottom line summary is DMAP works. Just presented this information at a conference about a month ago, our big Southeast Deer Study Group meeting. Did a presentation on it. It was well received. Going to be putting a lot of good information out for a long time using this data for sure.
That's awesome, Pierce. As we continue to focus on chronic wasting disease, it's to what extent when you're out and about do people still have lots of questions about it?
Yeah, I will say really in the last year or so, the conversations have been better. I think some of those myths are starting to work themselves out. You still get the conspiracy, theory people still talking about it a lot. But it's kind of the same old myths that we've had since we first found it in 2018. Some of the same myths and concerns. But what people need to understand is, we need to get together on this, get behind this issue. This is something that's going to affect our hunting heritage long term, and hopefully we can make things for the better and not let it be so detrimental, down the road.
Well, listen, as I did when I had last year the full show about CWD with William McKinley and Howard Bronson from the Whitetail Deer Program at Mississippi State. I went in, previous to this show and did a lot of research. And I think part of the problems, there are two things that are converging. One is, if you look at the USDA map, it's hard to not see that the sale and transfer of deer across America has injected CWD into the heartland. And some of those deer breeders have continued to push a narrative that is different from the reality of the science as we know it. So the other thing is that some old videos are up there. Ted Nugent was very outspoken about this in the beginning. Incidentally, he has a high fence, and he hunts inside the high fence, and I think accepts the sale and transfer of animals as well. And so he kind of became a voice for deer breeders in a way. But what you see more recently is that he acknowledges that CWD is an issue. So maybe some of his issues are with how it's being managed. So the problem is getting people having access to some of these older videos, and still some of these older videos get sent around. And I actually played a segment from a more recent video where he is acknowledging CWD is actually real. And then the questions are about management. And so CWD is something that unfortunately we don't have a cure for. And our goal, I just came to the realization that the easiest way to say it is we should adopt all best practices. We're part of a national data collection now on an apples to apples comparison, and we can see where states have implemented best practices and slowed the spread of CWD down. We see those who have not done it, and we've seen CWD continue to spread in those states. And so we're going to work hard to adopt those best practices, and our goal is to slow the spread of CWD down and give science a chance to catch up. Because let me tell you what, Pierce, if it doesn't catch up, I mean, I've had a wide range of professionals. I'm a professional hunters, scientists, and others on this show say that this could be the thing that undermines hunting as we know it in America. It's that serious. But it's the slow march across the landscape makes it really hard to build consensus around that it's real and that we need to be working together to manage the spread. That's part of the nature of this disease, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's slow going. It's hard to show how big of an impact it's making. Unlike other diseases like EHD or anthrax, where you can have a bunch of dead deer on that landscape all at once. It's not how this works. It's an invasive disease, just like an invasive plant. It slowly creeps until it's got a foothold in an area, and there's not a lot of good solutions for it right now. Like you said, we need to have everyone working in every arena and looking at it in different ways to get more information. The information we have now is completely different than what we had 5 years ago. We have so much better information. It's a complex disease, way more complex than anyone thought it was. And just simply, people don't like complex. I don't like complex. I don't like explaining complex things, but that's just the reality of it. And that's what we got to deal with.
Well, listen, I think I agree with you, and I've done my homework and I understand the science of it. and I've read what other states are doing, and I've really gone to school on it. Okay, so but it's simplistically saying our goal is to slow the spread. That's the most important thing, and Mississippi is going to be working overtime to adopt best practices focused on slowing the spread. That's sort of the prevailing, goal. But on top of that, we need only look in Mississippi at places like Benton County, where they don't see many mature deer anymore. That's a really important thing. And you know what? I wish I could, if I could like can some of these conversations I've had with owners of property in Benton County, and so that people, I'm saying can it. So I'm gonna put that can in a backpack, and the next time somebody says it's not real, blah blah blah, I can just hand them the can. They can open up the can and go, holy mackerel, I had no idea. Because that's how real it is, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mentioned earlier the conversation's been getting a little bit better over the last year. And I would say the reason for that is those stories have been getting out a lot more in the last year. I've been hearing them getting out and people having those conversations in social media platforms and things like that. And when people who have lived this and are living it now and have seen those changes in their area and be affected by this disease, having those conversations with those people, it definitely hits home for a lot more people when those conversations are being had.
Yeah, it's special, man. I think about this 160 plus inch deer I killed a couple of years ago, and we had 4 or 5 years of history with it on cameras, and we called it a nomad. I mean, it was just, we never knew where it was going to show up. I just got super lucky. I was in the general area where we had pictures of it, but I just got lucky. But I think about that experience, and I had my hunting son Jake Carter with me. His dad doesn't hunt, so he's been hunting and fishing with my sons and me for most of his adult life. And it was just a great experience. And I think about being able to share that with my grandson. And all of our activities, the culture of hunting, for the most part, tends to be centered around, passing on deer so that we can get them bigger and have fun doing it, the pursuit of that, and the culture that surrounds that. And Benton County, when they talk about those same things and their same goal and the same heritage and the same goals and wanting to share it with grandkids and all that, and then they say, but we don't see many mature deer. Imagine how that devastates that generational experience. And that's what we're trying to preserve in Mississippi. And I hope we can do it. Listen, we'll continue with our conversation with Pierce Young from the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks when we get back on the other side. We'll see you after this.